Hello and welcome back to the Fairbanks Year-Round Podcast. I am, of course, your host, Blake Schreckeis with the Summit Realty Group. We've got a real special one on here after a pretty huge breakup. Things really went south and salty for quite a few months, but we have worked it out. It is Nick Williams, the original host, and I was the co-host of the Summit Realty Group podcast that turned into Fairbanks Year-Round. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you, and let me just start. He's full of crap. There's never been drama. I got a little bit busy. I went a different direction. I gave everything to Blake, and he's grown it and made it so much better. So I'm proud of you, man. I love this.
Yeah, no, I'm really loving doing it. I did have some questions about it the other day. Whenever I schedule new guests, I'm always like, because it's a little bit of a hassle. I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I actually talk to the people like, hey, do you want to be on? And they're like, oh my God, I have so much to say. And I get so amped. And then actually doing the podcast, I'm usually like amped by the end.
That's my fault. I should have put all that responsibility on you a year ago. Had you schedule all these people.
I know. We were kind of splitting it, but no, yeah, Nick did pretty much everything on the last one. And it's funny, I don't know if I ever talked to you about this. I was stress-free the first year that we did this because I just showed up. I knew the guest, and because you would mainly lead it, and I would like insert a joke or something every now and again.
You were the comedic relief, and what really helped us fill the dead space. You were the entertainment for sure.
Yeah, and I really tried to extend those episodes beyond the hour. That was my main focus.
Me in the background with the wrap it up. That's why I couldn't do video. My hand gestures were always like,
I know. When Nick would get going, I'd be like, I don't even pay attention to him. His arms are like waving around. So anyways, no, but now I feel like every single time, not so much today because it's Nick, of course, but
it's our hair down episode.
Yeah, my hair is down. Way more stress on the episodes just getting going because I'm like, oh, what if I run out of things to ask? And there's no fallback guy, which is a big difference.
And so your guests matter too. There's some people that have some great businesses and some great stories and just lack the flair.
Yeah.
So those people, we had a couple guests like that were, great information, but really dry.
Yeah.
And you do a good job just bringing in the juice.
Yeah. I don't know. It's always, you never know. I had one of the worst, and I'm not going to say who it was because this guest was great. And I just was like off. Yeah. After this one, I'm like, it was Nick. I was just off. And it was the one time that I sat there and when you can't think of anything to say. Mm-hmm. And luckily he kind of riffed. I think he could tell that I was like, I can't think of another question to ask this guy. I've got no comment about what I don't know. It was just a weird day where I was not on like I should have been.
Oh, the peanut farmer episode.
The peanut farming episode. Yeah. So anyways, Nick is not here to talk about real estate, but I do briefly want to talk. Yeah. Well, we are. Yeah. Not his real estate sales side, I should say.
We bragged about him.
But I'm going to brag about Nick on his real estate sales side because it's a little bit tough a lot of times to talk about the things that you do. So he's been going for 4 years now.
This is the fourth year. Where I think you're going.
Which is not a lot.
Oh, no. Sorry, total? 5 years.
5 years, okay.
4 years is the number one sales agent this year.
Yes, 4 years. I was going to get to that. So he's been selling for 5 years, which again is not a lot, but most 87% of agents fail before 5 years. Yep. So congrats to you on that. There was no real risk after his first full calendar year.
That kind of
so he became the number one selling agent, and everybody takes that title because they'll say, oh, I have the most transactions, or I sell the most in North Pole or whatever. Nick sold the most gross volume, which is just the amount of sales in the area. And in fact, he broke the record for a single agent in 2021, correct?
That's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with all those numbers.
Our databases are kind of gerrymandered, but some friends in Anchorage look up their statistics, Juneau, and then here. Yeah. Obviously, Juneau doesn't count, but I just want to make sure I did look somewhere other than Anchorage. And
so the best we can tell, he sells a lot of real estate regardless. Yeah. I'm unafraid to say that, of course, because we are two very different personalities. Yep. So I fit the need. I would love to sell as much as Nick. I'd be lying if I say I didn't. I don't want to work the hours Nick works, though. But yeah, you're good. So anyways, great agent. Let's move on from that to talk about how you got to Fairbanks.
I also have my super special guest, Ariel, here.
Yeah.
She works with all of the Fairbanks celebrities.
Yeah, I got a little caught off guard.
Doing a little behind the scenes for me.
Super wide angle lens there. So you can see, just so you know, I can see to the corner of the room there. That's kind of that angle, which I don't care if you're in.
So yes, I am double tapping this interview and using some content for myself as well.
Perfect. Well, I generally, the other reason she's sitting here is, we're good. is that my wife is unbelievably pregnant, huge. She loves it when I call her that. It's going to be huge, and about to have a baby.
5 foot tall and 5 foot wide.
It's pretty much. It all just goes straight out. You cannot tell she's pregnant from behind, and then she'll turn, and you're like, oh my God, it's like an optical illusion. So, but she also couldn't stand to be in the room with Nick.
I love
they
you,
just
Shelby.
really don't. No, I'm joking, of course.
I love you.
But now I have Ariel who can snicker behind Nick's back, and I can make little jokes. See, yeah, no, don't look back there, Nick. Eyes on me, buddy.
Sorry.
So, anyways, how did you get to Fairbanks? We did a whole podcast. If anybody wants to listen to,
We'll keep this one shorter
the in
about
depth,
that.
but yeah, like the quick, how'd you got to Fairbanks, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I was an Army guy. I was an Army officer in the infantry. Got stationed up here after the captain's career course. I was supposed to go to Texas. A shoulder replacement kind of delayed me by 6 months. My spot in Texas was taken, and they're like, you know what? We like your reputation in the Army. And I got a direct request from the guy who was in charge here at Fort Wainwright back in 2016. By the time I showed up here, he was already gone, but the new guy also liked me, so he kept me here, and I did my 3 years as a company commander, and then got into real estate. So that's a short and sweet. I mean, I could take an hour and just talk about that.
No, that was
but
good.
That's pretty much how it happened. So, just like most people in Fairbanks, brought up here by the government, and then fell in love with the state. I mean, that's really, I did fall in love with a gal too, and she has about 90% to do with this, but we don't want to give her too much credit. We're going to say it was all beautiful Alaska.
As good as a real estate agent Nick is, the gal is way better.
She's the legend. She's the OG. She taught me everything in the first year.
Yeah, really. And I'm not saying that facetiously. She's like someone I have, ever since I got here, looked up to as someone like, if you're talking about like just peak professionality and getting the stuff done that actually matters in real estate, like she's always doing it.
You should hear our brainstorming sessions for social media. 80% of it is ripping off Jewel.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Literally. I'm like, I want to do that.
I follow Jewel just to know what I'm doing wrong, basically. And not in the same league. But I've tried to get Jewel on here, and she will not. Like, before she has time to think about it, she'll say, no, I haven't finished the sentence. Yeah. But I did want to ask about the military. So people getting injured in the military is so common. I didn't really realize this. I mean, it's obvious when you think about
Obviously a physical job.
Right. It's a very physical job. Disability, military disability and things is like almost the second retirement. I don't know if that is widely talked about, but
it's health assistance.
Health assistance, which I'm not saying it's undeserved.
Well, if you're 90%, you get around $2,000 a month. If you're 100%, you get about $3,500 a month. Right. So it's definitely a huge, and that's it. Like that's the top of the chart. Obviously, if you got like 10%, you're getting a couple $100. But depending on your trials and tribulations and what you went through while you were in the service, that gets factored in, and it's the confusing part is we call it disability, but it's not disability. It's disability compensation. Mm-hmm. So we're not getting disability per se, like from the government. We're getting compensated for the disabilities that were forced upon us from the occupation.
Right.
So similar but different.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you.
A lot of people think it means like you can't work or something like that. It's like, no, I just got messed up and I get a percentage of my pay indefinitely because of the injuries I sustained in that career.
And this is just opinion here, but do you think this is something that could be way prevented more often, the injuries we have, or do you think it's just the nature of the job?
I think it's both of those and a little bit of fraud. And just to throw it out there, you go through a lot of things you won't get repaid for. And so by claiming things through the system, a lot of people are getting some money that might be on the lower end of things, but there's a lot of little things like, I don't know, tinnitus. I got that. You know, a lot of guys claim ED. I don't, but
what's ED?
Erectile dysfunction.
Oh, I knew that.
Sleep insomnia, sleep apnea, those types of things are things that could be from pre-existing conditions or not, but since they became noted during the military, they take advantage of that stuff. So that's on that end of things. Other guys literally lose arms and legs and deserve every penny they get. So I'm not here to be judge, jury, and pick and choose these things, but the system is in place to compensate you for the hardships you went through during your career.
Yeah. I always have a hard time with that deciding. Like for me, being non-military, when the PPP came out during COVID, which was for businesses, payroll protection program, basically became free money. They weren't really sure at the beginning.
For you to give your employees. In our industry, we're the employees, so we got to keep it. If you had 20 employees, you'd have to spread. You get more money. You'd spread that out amongst the 20 employees.
Right. So, and it was kind of like when we first signed up for it, they're like, well, are we going to repay this back? They're like, at worst, you'll pay it back with no interest, or it could be forgiven. Like it was a really weird time where they were just rushing this thing out.
Yeah. And without any clear direction on what it was for. I didn't take the first PPP.
Yeah. I took the first, and based off my income and things like that, I was down in Arkansas. It was only ended up being like $6,000 or something, but I still kind of go back and forth of like, I didn't really need it. In fact, 2021 and everything, this is the best years for real estate ever was during COVID. We sold so much.
2.75. You can't beat that.
So in the bigger scheme of things, I never know if it's like, I don't approve of this program the government's doing, and I'm very much more like I want a smaller government, more libertarian in my beliefs.
Well, for the record, I don't believe in student loan forgiveness, but had I had student loans, I'd be.
That's what I'm saying.
So I can't foul the people for taking the money.
No,
But at the same time, the reason why we have rampant inflation, extreme government spending, government overreach is because we allowed them to do it.
Yeah.
So we all want to blame Joe Biden, Donald Trump, every politician that we know. But we got to look in the mirror first. If you take the money, you're voting for them essentially. You're giving them the support. So if you don't want the government, quit taking the government's money.
I know. I've been going back and forth. So I'm on an unmaintained road where I live, and it's expensive to maintain a road when we have 20 households, and about 7 of them are willing to pay.
And it's a really nice cul-de-sac.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like now we're looking at getting maintained, which means getting a little more government in our life and upping our property taxes by, depending on what your house value is, maybe $300 or $400 a year. But then again, so it's one of those deals, like I looked at it and I was like, hey, this is a worthy thing. And this is, I think, a good use of government because I can't get these neighbors to pay for regrading the road or whatever.
My neighborhood's the same way. So we're on a paved road. We're on a maintained road.
Right.
But my neighborhood is really nice, and we get a lot of people that use our road as a shortcut to get to the subdivision behind us. And we have this really beautiful gate right by our entrance. So my entire subdivision got together and we're like, hey, let's start closing the gate.
Yeah.
As soon as we did that, it became a private road. So now we have to maintain the asphalt. We have to, maintain everything within the subdivision.
Is it coded, or is it you just
not yet?
Close it
We were talking about everybody kicking in, $200-$300 and making it a coded,
like an actual gated
go. Yeah. But then we would lose all snowplow access, water maintenance, all that stuff. So we turned that down. So same but different, opposite side of the coin kind of.
Yeah, but again, I decided, someone who wants as little government as possible, and that's the hard part. Is that, hey, this part of government I really like, and I want it to use it for me. And I think that's a good use of it because we got to decide as a road, and it hasn't been decided yet, but we get to vote on it and everything, and so does the community. But I was talking to Mr. Bryce Ward. Wow.
I got it.
Current borough mayor here, and we were discussing that. He's like, listen, I get what you're saying when I would say, hey, I want this government to be reduced as possible. He says that idea in general sounds really great. He says you pick one program you want to reduce, and there's people that love that particular program, and it's always that way. And so he's in a hard spot. It's like, what do you do about that? He's like, I don't know. When it
comes to politics and politicians, there is no win, and it doesn't matter if you're libertarian, liberal, conservative, neo-Nazi. It doesn't matter. Somebody's always going to hate you,
especially if you're neo-Nazi.
But like, there is no winning. There is no end. There's no way to make everybody happy. And especially right now, we need to quit focusing on making people happy.
Yep.
And we need to focus on bringing people back together. But political rant over there.
That's okay. I think us as a state, Alaska, or at least I'll say Fairbanks community, I think we do pretty good. We obviously have people.
We're better than most.
I think so.
And pretty civil too. Like our arguments are like, the biggest argument I've heard was that whole say no to the tax cap increase. And believe it or not, most of the town got behind it, like saying no to it.
Yeah. Most of the voting town.
If you were obviously in the school systems, if you're tied to government, a lot of those people were in favor of it. But what I did notice going around the street talking to people about that program is a lot of people didn't understand the details. They thought we were running out of money. They didn't know the borough was actually sitting on a surplus of tax income. So
yeah,
why would I give you more money if you have plenty?
Most people don't.
I'm not going to give Bill Gates a loan. Elon Musk doesn't need my financial support.
Right.
So why am I going to give the borough extra money?
It's a tough question that I'm not going to answer because we're going to move on from this.
Thought we were talking about real estate, Blake. What are you doing?
Yeah. So he comes to Fairbanks. He ends up loving it here, as many of us do. Almost everybody I bring on the podcast happens to love Fairbanks. I have yet to have someone who doesn't love it because they probably wouldn't be too successful. I mean, I don't know.
They probably also wouldn't come on a Fairbanks podcast if they were anti-Fairbanks.
The guy that does the wood stove, the air quality guy. Yeah. I wouldn't say that he hated Fairbanks, but he was maybe indifferent to it.
He was perceived to hate Fairbanks.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way.
I got so many comments about that, like real life people. Like my neighbor, I have a fence. He's literally hanging on the fence to talk. This is how important it is to him. His little chin's over the fence. Like, why didn't you ask this question? I was like, listen, I'm just out here doing the best I can. He's like, well, you did pretty good
as we go. Okay.
Yeah, maybe I'll have him back on all the frequently asked questions.
So have a panel, bring on all your guests. Right. And be like, hey, these are the questions we forgot to ask you. Yeah. Like the reality TV show after shows.
Yeah, exactly. So we will have some repeats one of these days. I am surprised that I haven't had to yet.
We have so many small businesses here. You'll never run out of entrepreneurs you can talk to.
We got a lot of cool people coming up. Yeah. I'm trying to get Bernie Carl from the Chino Hot Springs.
Yeah.
I think he'll be really interesting, but he hasn't given me a yes yet.
For you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've got him, and he's like, I don't know anything about you. He seems like a pretty cool guy. I was like, I understand that. Do you want to listen to some podcasts? He's like, yep, I won't yank you around, man. I'll make a decision. So I'm still waiting on that decision.
He's got a couple months worth of episodes to listen to first.
Know, for sure. So came into real estate. Now, AK BNB Management.
Correct.
Is a management company for people's bed and breakfasts, what most people know as Airbnb. Short-term rentals.
STRs.
Yep, which seems like a pretty natural thing to do. It's obviously real estate related, but what got you started?
Well, there's two sides of the story. My side of the story goes, I was helping buyers and sellers buy and sell property. Pretty reasonable, right? But there was kind of a gap for people that didn't have enough equity to sell their home. They had a really good interest rate and they want to keep property in Alaska, but they had to go somewhere else because of the military normally, but also, occupational changes and stuff like that, and wanted to go somewhere else and need to buy a house. Well, because of debt to income ratios, it's really hard to buy a house every single time you go somewhere without creating income from the properties you have elsewhere, either renting them out long-term, short-term, or selling them. And so I found this void in my business where I was turning away a little bit of business that, I can service. It's not always about the money. It's about, helping people. And so I started looking into Airbnbs, short-term rentals, and I was like, it's something I'd be interested in. And that's where I got connected with Darren and Tay. The flip side of that coin is they started the business about 6 to 8 months before they brought me on. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I started the business. I didn't create the business. I was really brought in as an outside consultant, subject matter expert to grow the business. And we've done that. And we've been pretty successful. Right now, I'd say we're the second largest management company in town. And by the end of the year, if the people that are trying to sign on go the way we want it to go, we will be the number one short-term rental management company in Fairbanks.
And a little shout out to Darren. He owns Level
Up and partners in a few other barber ventures. So he's a big time barber here in Fairbanks.
Yep. And we had a previous podcast with him back when it was Summit Realty Group podcast.
And Tay is just as pregnant as your wife and about 2 months from popping as well. So
this was supposed to be Tay sitting across the table. This is what forced our breakup to have to mend. Is Tay's like, could you allow Nick back in? And I said, into my heart, I don't know, but I guess on the podcast.
You're just stirring this pot, aren't you?
No.
Fairbanks drama.
No. So Adam,
we should do a Mike Tyson, Jake Paul reenactment of you and me boxing in the ring.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm not so glad. I'm so bummed that got
I'm bummed,
pushed
but it's pushed. It's still going to happen.
It's still going to happen.
Got pushed out.
Yeah. I was going to say Adam, who works for you, Victorino, his brother, Josh. I was just talking to Adam, and he's like, yeah, right. Josh said that you and Nick were like really beefing or something because I had cut a short out of me.
I don't think you and me have ever argued.
No, not really.
We've disagreed on like points of real estate.
Yeah.
But we've never argued about anything.
Well, I think our personalities, we enjoy disagreeing with each other.
Yeah, we're argumentative.
So it's not, it's not really a bad thing.
Nice to have an intellectual conversation.
Yeah.
And try to trump or best the other person.
Well, and we agree on like 99% of things. So we kind of just argue over that last 1% that doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
But Darren was a great guest to have on. There is no beef. But okay, so you get into doing the management, and this was how long ago?
2020, we're on our second year now. So end of 22.
So when we'll start broad and we'll dig in. Why would anybody use a management company for short-term rentals?
So our focus is really out-of-state investors. So going back to that story, you're military, you just bought your house 2 years ago, you cannot afford to sell your house. Or people that bought it 3 or 4 years ago, back when the interest rates were super low, and they want to keep their property. And so, that's how we kind of got started. That's who we target. But why would you use us? To make your life easy. You don't, just like in real estate, you don't have to use a realtor to buy or sell a house. You don't have to use a management company to manage your Airbnb. There are plenty of people in Fairbanks that do it. But the proof is in the pudding. Fairbanks' average occupancy rate is in the mid-60s. I think last time I checked it was 63%, which is pretty low, but that's because we're starting to get a saturated market. Our management average is about 73%. So we're beating the market by 10%. If your stock guy says that, hire them. It's a pretty good, beating the market by 10% is huge. So that's something we pride ourselves on. We aren't just on Airbnb. We use Airbnb because that's the common lingo. I don't use short-term rentals a lot because people are like, what is that? Is that like a hotel? Well, kind of, but it's an Airbnb. Mm-hmm. And so same thing with VBRO, bookings.com. We're on about 8 different websites. And then we have our own platform and website as well that you can book directly through. So simplicity is one. And then, the logistics is another one. How are you going to manage a cleaner if you're in Michigan? How are you going to buy linens and restock your stuff when you're in Wisconsin? Mm-hmm. How do you advertise effectively in Fairbanks when you're in Florida? Those are the things that we do for you. And so our team's really divided up into 3 parts. I'm the host representative. I don't deal with clients very much or the guests. I really focus on the hosts, getting the Airbnbs ready, getting them signed up, and getting them going. Mm-hmm. Darren kind of manages the online presence, the advertising, the behind the scenes kind of stuff. And then Tay was managing the cleaners, the calendars, and then the properties themselves. Mm-hmm. We're kind of reconfiguring some things now with Tay's pregnancy. Me and Darren are kind of taking on a little bit more. We're hiring out more employees now. So we were working on a management team that is going to help us run client communications and the resupplies. And then we have our own stock of cleaners, and we're working on outsourcing some of our further out properties so we can really expand our area of operation.
Yeah. So something we didn't talk about, we should have, is it seems obvious, but what is the difference between a long-term and a short-term rental?
So there's really 3. There's long-term, mid-term, and short-term. Mm-hmm. So long-term is what most people understand from landlords, right? You own a property, you rent it to somebody empty, and they put their own furniture in it. They sign a 1-year lease, and they pay you monthly for living in your property. That's your typical long-term, and we don't do that. That's property management. That is, your John Cruzens, Carrie Nations, Kristen Maddoxes, those people here in town that manage those.
Joe Head now.
Joe Head. Yeah, shout out to Joe and Joe Head Properties. You see that white van all over North Pole right now.
Yeah. I'm trying to get him in here, mostly to talk about pilot stuff. But again, if anybody, I think he's starting to look, so maybe I shouldn't blast yet for good landlords, but he is the most systemized person I can think of, and that is exactly who you need. And he doesn't mind getting shouted at, which is another great personality trait.
He can take it on the chin pretty good.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't bother him a bit.
Exactly.
But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's that. The midterm is a combination between short-term and long-term. Midterm would be that same property you would rent out long-term. You can use a short-term property manager or a long-term property manager for that. But basically, it's a furnished apartment that you rent on a month-to-month basis. So 30-day minimums. No lease is required unless they want a longer one, but that's what makes it midterm. It's a 1 month, month-to-month lease. And so we see a lot of those with the traveling nurses here, the summertime laborers, smoke jumpers. So during the summer, the midterm rental is actually really hot. In the winter, it drops off because we get less of the blue-collar workers coming up here for the summer jobs, the work season, if you will. But the traveling nurses are year-round. In fact, they just bought a 65-unit apartment complex that they're just going to dedicate to traveling nurses. So
you're talking about the hospital?
The hospital just bought the Dixon Apartments. So
sweet.
Huge. I don't know if that's official yet, but now you know.
Hopefully by next Tuesday.
I'm not representing anybody on that deal, so I can talk about it freely.
Yeah, as much as I know about it.
It's all what I heard about through the grapevine.
Yeah, they're always buying stuff up.
They are.
Yeah.
I mean, the medical field makes a lot of money, and if they can reinvest that money to help their employees, I think it's a good thing. I'm not even against it. What I also like about it is now there's 65 people or families that need housing. So that's going to help all the other landlords out there, fill their vacancies and that kind of stuff.
So why would someone choose?
And then short-term rental.
Oh, so go ahead and
short-term rentals are Airbnbs. So that is a house that you fully furnish, fully stock, and you go a little bit extra on it. So with your midterm rental, you don't need to provide all these video games and movie theater rooms and that kind of stuff. You make more money on a short-term rental on that because you can charge more by a daily rate than you can a monthly rate. Mm-hmm. And so short-term rentals are really turning your house into a hotel, letting somebody rent it, and live in your property for a day, a week, a month, 2 months.
And there's such a huge variety. I have 2 people in mind. Mr. Joe Head, who doesn't do them anymore, had some Airbnbs or short-term rentals, and they were great. It was a new construction. It was clean. It was just a great little stay for people. But then I'm also having on the lady who has the
Treehouse?
Birch. God darn, it just slipped out of my mind.
Birch Hill Recreational Ski
Area. No. It's it's on a little pond. She has, I think it was either 1 or 2 units. I'll know more when I actually have a podcast with her. But she's very much about basically a bespoke experience.
Yeah.
Like she makes sure she makes everyone breakfast, like a legit
So
bed
like
and
a
breakfast.
legit bed and breakfast
Right.
on Airbnb.
She makes a campfire every night and asks people to join, like if they want to, if they don't want to.
You should have Sven on as well.
Okay.
Has Sven's hostel down there on Davis Road.
Oh,
Also
okay.
friends with Joe Head.
Cool.
Great guy, super well connected in town, and it runs the only legitimate hostel here in town.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a huge variety on what can be offered. None is worse or better on what you can do because you can really make it this huge experience.
It's all opportunities. It's just like, do you buy a single family home, a duplex, triplex, fourplex, or a commercial real estate? Like they're all investment projects. It just depends on where you want to put your time and effort and what return on investment you're trying to get.
So in general, short term is going to be more day-to-day work. Why would somebody want that, even if they are going to hire a
I'll use
management
myself
company?
as an example here. I started my first Airbnb before I ever got involved with the management company, and we were running over there and delivering coffee on the regular, replacing trash bags on the regular, because we didn't have our systems down. We just, you need something? Let me drop what I'm doing, drive across town, and service you. And that was getting really frustrating. And then we went through about 5 or 6 cleaners. You know, they weren't living up to our standard. They were hurting our reputation. We were getting some negative reviews because it wasn't, I don't want to say we were dirty, but it was definitely like, there was a little bit of water left in the tub because it wasn't dried off. There wasn't extra linens or something like that. So it was kind of like just a little nitpicky stuff. But after about 3, 4, 5 cleaners, we were like, all right, we got to figure out a system here. Like we need a checklist for the cleaners to make sure that they literally checked off everything we want them to do. So there's no, I forgot. We need to have extra linens in case there's an accident. We need to have extra trash bags. So we have to run over here just because somebody, ordered out and filled up the bag with, to-go boxes, that kind of stuff. And then we learned some other things too. My first Airbnb was in the basement of my fourplex. And so while we made it absolutely a cute, well-decorated, homey property, I still had nasty tenants that lived upstairs that created a bunch of noises. And yes, I hated the tenant that was upstairs. We actually ended that B&B because of that tenant. Mm-hmm. He came downstairs and was telling my guests that somebody had died in the Airbnb, that, just yesterday somebody crawled through the window. And he was doing that to my guests' faces as they were checking in. And we had to refund and cancel about 8 stays in a row because of him. So never, from my point of view, never have an Airbnb in a multifamily unless you're living in that multifamily, able to manage it like that. So if you have a duplex and you want half of it to be an Airbnb, that's sustainable and doable. But
so you don't have an Airbnb in your multi anymore?
No, we had to shut that down. I went and bought another property, a single family home. We turned that into an Airbnb. It's doing a lot better. We can charge a little bit more per night. We have less issues there. That one's doing really well. But yeah, we kind of pulled the cord after a while on that one.
I'm going to go on a side trail here. I've got that reminded me, and I may have told this story before, I don't know, but if ever you don't want your neighbor's house to sell, here's the best tip I can give you. This was not me. It was another.
Walk around naked.
Yeah, that's a good one. Depending, if you're real good looking, that may have the opposite effect, though. So, Nick, though, you're good. Go ahead and do that. No, so an agent that started with me, we got licensed at the same time, and so we were taking any deals we could. He goes up to this house. This is in Arkansas. So when I'm talking in the hills, it's like actually in the hills.
The hills of eyes, yeah.
Yeah. So in the hills of Arkansas, looking at this kind of rundown little house. And he comes out with his clients, and the guy across the road is like, hey, what are you guys doing? They're like, just showing this house. It's for sale. He's like, oh, okay. So they go inside to start showing it. They hear a boom. And they come running out. The guy's got a shotgun, and it's just pointed away. But he says, sure hate to live next to me. And that's all he said.
Genius. Now put a crop top on him, have him rub his belly button, and you're right there.
Listen, I don't think he had a shirt. It was the overall situation.
Even better.
It's a very common look down there.
Better.
Yeah. So you're getting some nipple slippage out, of the old buckles.
Bubba. I know Bubba.
So the renting, short-term, long-term, midterm, you're always going to have some similarities in maybe some stressors of having tenants. I managed for very
short-term and midterm, we don't call them tenants because then it would fall under the Landlord-Tenant Act, and that's exactly what we don't want.
Bullet.
We don't want that. You're not earning squatters' rights by staying in a midterm rental.
So what I noticed in my short, and I've not done as much as you, but I did manage long-term tenants, and I've managed Airbnb short-term guests. And I felt overall, there's some exceptions to this. The guests, even though you did have more work, they were usually way nicer, way more thankful, and kind of easier to deal with.
Depends nowadays.
That's I wonder.
Because
so
what I have noticed, I agree. Tenants want to make it their home and want to be left alone. So
Yes.
the tenant-landlord interaction is very minimal. Property management is interchangeable landlord there. Is very minimal. It's always negative, though. If the property manager or landlord reaches out to tenants, usually because they didn't pay. Mm-hmm. And if the tenant reaches out to the property manager or landlord, it's usually because there's something broken, something that's going to cost the owner money. So no matter how that interaction goes, it's always negative. Mm-hmm. The good thing about short-term property management or rental management is the fact that it's almost never negative. If it is negative, it's because of a shortcoming of the management company or the host, right? The place isn't clean, it wasn't reset, the trash wasn't taken out, the water doesn't work, something like that. But for the most part, it's just like, hey, we really enjoy your place. Is there a way you can help us get something that we need? An air conditioner, something like that. So it's usually more of an ask. It's not a demand. And we get a lot of good feedback. Something I've never seen any of my tenants do. And I got numerous rental properties for long-term renter as well. And none of my tenants ever said, hey, I really enjoyed staying here with you. Mm-hmm. I really appreciated the 2 years I lived in your apartment. There's never been a positive moment in long-term management.
Mm-hmm. So I've noticed, and I am a big short-term rental guy. Like when Airbnb got big, I don't know, what was it? Has it been 15 years?
2015, so close to 10 now.
Yeah. So I remember when I started hearing about them, not when they first started, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is an excellent idea. And I loved going and staying. I stayed on people's couches. I've stayed in
couch
people's...
surfing was huge back in 2015, 16.
That's a lie. I didn't stay in a couch. It was usually a spare room.
My first month in Fairbanks while I was buying my house, I just hopped from couch to guest bedroom to OnCouchSurfing.com.
Yeah. So, I forgot about that. I don't know if it's still around.
I'm sure it is internationally, but in America,
it's kind of just Airbnb.
It's kind of weird. In Europe, you can stay on someone's couch and probably not get harassed. In America, you're probably going to get an organ harvested.
Yeah, the older I get, the more I don't sleep well anyways.
I want a bed and a 5-star hotel. I'm getting bougie. Or camping. I'm both extremes. I can sleep in the dirt or in a nice bed, but anything in between.
I have to admit something. So I set up my tent this year, and I every Saturday night, because I don't have to wake up early on Sundays. One day I don't wake up early to work out or whatever. Every Saturday night, I'm going to go sleep in my tent. And...
Take your kids with you.
Yeah, and my kids.
Train them, because I wish Jewel could sleep in a tent, but she cannot.
I got to be honest. I did it for about a month, and I stopped because I was like, I'm just sleeping so terrible. And I feel kind of like a wimp because I was like, I just feel terrible on Sundays, and it's my day off, and I want to feel great and have a little rest. I know. I mean, I have an air mattress. I have a nice, it's not like I'm sleeping on the ground out there or anything, but I was like, you get all humid, so I'm all sticky, and anyways, that's my confession. But
getting soft, buddy.
I know, that's the sad part. I feel like a bit of a swing back, and I'm seeing a lot of ads where hotels these days are like, you have to do this and this and this and pay for a cleaning fee and all these negatives. And again, preface this by I do like short terms. I do think there's options for everybody, though. Are you noticing that affecting business at all? Where it's like, hey, instead of doing this and dealing with the headaches of a short-term rental and having house rules or whatever, just come to a hotel and don't worry about it. It's like it's the default thing to do, basically.
Some of those. So what we see is if you're just traveling to do touristy things, right? Let's call it a vacation. You're probably going to stay in a hotel. If you're coming up here for a workcation, a staycation, any of those other versions of a vacation, and those are getting really popular here, then they're staying in Airbnbs. And that's why we set some parameters on what we do manage and don't manage. If you have an apartment building, with the exception of a duplex, we probably won't manage you. If you have a 1-bedroom or efficiency unit, we won't rent. We won't host you, right? And then lastly, dry cabins. And each one of those has its own reasons, but what we've noticed is a lot lower stays, a lot lower occupancy rates, a lot lower daily rent, and a lot more issues with those tenants, with those guests. And so we're kind of stepping back from those. So that's where we went from 16 properties. We're back down to 10 now. And then we got about 10 in the queue for this summer that we're getting up and running, getting stage furnished, photographed, that kind of stuff. So we're seeing a little bit of a boom in the people that want to have Airbnbs. And we keep hearing, is the market saturated? And I'll tell you, absolutely it is. It's 100% saturated in certain niches. And those niches are the apartment buildings. Everybody that has a fourplex has that one tenant they kick out and they're like, thank God he's gone. Let's turn his unit into an Airbnb.
That's hilarious.
But what you don't understand is you still have 3 other tenants that are living their normal lives while somebody's trying to have a vacation experience. And then the trust factor, because we don't, always get to vet who stays at the properties. So now you have tenants complaining because, there's a big scary guy down the hallway or, I think they're making porn in the, like you get all of those things. And it's like, no, it's just a mom and her kids that are staying in the unit. Like they're playing loud TV. Like,
yeah.
So we're stepping back from those properties and those areas. And we're really focusing on like the VBRO model of like a staycation, a destination vacation. Mm-hmm. So we want cabins. We want nice properties. We want large properties. We want properties with amenities. We want properties that are close to tourist attractions, natural beauty, hiking trails, that kind of stuff. So nothing against downtown Fairbanks. There's still a lot of great Airbnbs in downtown Fairbanks that we do manage. But what we're seeing is that multifamily mix is not a good model. Mm-hmm. And so if you do have a fourplex and you would turn into an Airbnb, I think you got to go for broke. You either do full long-term rental or you take all 4 units and turn it into a short-term rental complex.
Yeah.
The mix and match model is where we're seeing the failures, the issues, and the problems.
So what I'm hearing is you can't just have a space that's trying to emulate what a hotel does, because they probably will do it better.
The hotels will do it better. They have full-time staff. They have on-property staff. They have a system that goes back 20, 30 years. They got the experience. They got the advertising dollars from Marriott and the Hyatt and all that stuff behind them.
And it's the economy of scale.
And it's the economy of scale. I mean, they're huge. They don't need to have, if they get 63% occupancy rate, they're doing great because of the pricing model that they have.
Right.
If we get you a 43% occupancy rate, you're probably not going to be happy. You'll be lucky if you cover the mortgage after the fees. Mm-hmm. So, what we try to do is base the numbers off of a 15-day stay. If we get you full for half a month, we want you to be able to pay your mortgage after all your fees. Mm-hmm. Like that's kind of the goal of the model. The break-even point should be 15 days. And then after that, everything should be profit.
Yeah. Yeah. So you go from, hey, I'm just trying to emulate a 1-bedroom hotel to, hey, these are things that a hotel will not give you. Mm-hmm. So just like that Birch place that I cannot think of the name. Like
you're not going to get a wood fireplace in a hotel.
Yeah.
You're not going to be by a lake that has a pool in it. You're not going to, well, you will get a pool in a hotel, depending on the hotel, right?
Maybe not a private pool though.
Most of these Airbnbs have private hot tubs. Mm-hmm. You have a private bathroom or 2. Mm-hmm. A garage that you can park in, different things like that. But the main thing is like, you don't have everybody else around you. Mm-hmm. You do have that privacy again. You don't have to worry about the high school basketball team throwing a party next door in room 15B and 16A or whatever. So that's the real benefit of it. But also to bring that home experience to your vacation. Mm-hmm. We've all stayed at hotels. I'm sure we're all used to hotels, but it's like you're sleeping in somebody else's area
with nowhere to cook.
With nowhere to cook.
Cases. And that's the thing. You have a microwave.
If you do stay somewhere for 2 or 3 days, go to a hotel.
Right.
It's going to be easier living for you. It's going to be right next to those places you want to visit anyway. But if you're going to stay somewhere for a week or 2, get an Airbnb, cook your own meals, at least breakfast. Everybody wants to sleep in. Next thing you know, it's lunch. You skip breakfast. Your whole day is kind of messed up. You can keep that home routine on your vacation if you're in an Airbnb. Yeah. You can do your own laundry. That's the biggest reason why I do Airbnbs when I travel abroad is the laundry option. I can either pay the hotel $50 to wash 3 shirts and 2 pairs of jeans, or I can throw in a load for free at my Airbnb.
Well, here I'll give one positive too, because I think it's different for different people, and I think you would agree. So you want to say hotel?
There's options.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sell anybody.
We're not trying
to
get rid of hotels. We're just trying to have another option along with your hotels.
I was just trying to think of the last time I stayed in a hotel, and the last time I stayed in a hotel, because it's going to sound bad for short-term rentals, is I was in an apartment style. This was down in Dallas, Fort Worth area. I was in in a big apartment building, and we did an Airbnb that was there, of course, because it's cheap, because I'm cheap. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can tell by my nose, my heritage, but can we talk? Well, I'm Jewish, so that's okay, right?
If you are, you are.
Yeah, if I had curly hair, I got it all. So anyways, stayed there cheap. Yeah, thank you. So it was cheap, and it was a pretty good space and stuff. We come home from our daily outings, and there is a notice on our door that says, hey, these floors, floor 15 through 25, which we were on, whatever it was, are all getting sprayed for cockroaches basically
bed
tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we definitely had seen a few cockroaches. But in big cities, if you don't know people, there are cockroaches. So I don't really hold it against this guy. It was not like he has it was a gross building or something, but they're just all over the place. So anyways, that was the one time we stayed in a hotel. I called my guy. I was like, I'm not staying through a cockroach spraying. This is ridiculous. And it's hard to review somebody because he was super nice. He's like, oh yeah, I totally understand. So I was like, I don't know. I gave him 4 stars, I guess. But I was like, I kind of felt bad.
I mean, customer service was great, but the experience wasn't.
It was kind of hard because he couldn't control, what was going on.
And they got to do it anyway for the longevity of the business.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, we got to screw over these couple guests in order
I know.
Provide for the rest of the guests.
Well, I guess...
And I guess I would give less of a bad review for a cockroach spraying than cockroaches.
Well, we did see a few in there.
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm from the South, and I've seen cockroaches before. It can be because of uncleanliness, but in a big city, I think most of the times it's just because...
You go to New York and
rats.
$10 million building will have rats and cockroaches.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it comes with the territory.
Have you seen...
But if you don't like cockroaches, come to Alaska. We don't have them. And all of our Airbnbs will be cockroach free.
Yeah. And if you love mosquitoes, come in the summertime.
They're basically our state bird.
The smoke has been really bad this year, but it seems to have taken care of a lot of mosquitoes. I haven't noticed them as bad. But
I'll tell you this weekend, I'm going out to my land to work on that some more. And
you're going to be rained on, it sounds like, man.
It's going to be a muddy mess, but it's my staycation for the weekend.
Oh, man. I don't know what I'm doing. We were going to go out to Birch Lake, and I think I'm going to do
everybody else.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to do like a day trip. I am really not into being around a bunch of people.
I am not either. I'm getting older. I want to be left alone. And I'm trying to talk Jewel into celebrating all of our holidays a week before the holiday. So we'll do the 4th of July last weekend. You know, that kind of stuff. Just because, like, the campgrounds are overrun. Or, you know, like, I want to go to my spot. I know this is how OCD I am. I have every camp spot I've ever been to. And what we do right before we leave is we drive around the entire campsite and we write down the numbers of the best spots. So the spots that are further away from everybody else or right against the river or the ones that have the good pull-in, pull-outs for the RV and stuff like that. So I just want to go to, like, you know, Rose Hip, number 13.
Yeah.
And I get there and it's like, oh, they're all taken except for 18, which is right next to the dumpsters.
Yeah.
You know, like, so that's why, like, on the holidays, I kind of just want to go on my land or, you know, go drive the Denali Highway on a pull-off or something like that rather than an actual campsite.
Yeah, and that's another issue with being in a touristy area. We're not like the most traveled tourist area, of course. We're not like Hawaii or anything, but we do in the summertime. We get a lot.
I mean, this Airbnb business is pretty much catering to tourists. We get a few from the villages that come in. We get a few from Glen Allen and Delta that come up here for shopping and stuff like that. But the majority of our guests are foreigners and lower 48ers coming up here to experience what we do on a daily.
So something we've spoke about off the mic before is how hard it is to buy not new construction, but to buy yourself a property these days. And with their interest rates, be able to cash flow on long term. So the opportunity seems like it's there. Is it there with the short term, or is
yes and no?
Okay.
So this is a problem we bump into all the time. The profitability is there, and especially if you go above and beyond and you, like, really do a great job. We got an Airbnb where this guy bought a pretty rundown property, and he had to remodel it from head to toe.
Kirby Birch. Kirby Birch is that lady I was thinking of. So she's listening to this one. I finally remembered. Go ahead.
So completely remodel it from top to bottom, put a bunch of money into it, bought another hot tub, put in a fireplace, really high-end furniture, built a stadium seating game room with PlayStation, Xboxes mounted on the wall, like really went over the top. And that one's doing amazing. But then we also have guests that, like, oh, I have a house. Let me put a bed in every room and a couch in the living room with a TV and I'm done. That one's not doing as well. Mm-hmm. So the problem with Airbnbs is the upfront cost. So you can literally empty out your house, move, and turn into a long-term rental for free. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't cost you an extra penny to turn into a long-term rental until you hire property management or something like that. With an Airbnb, you basically have to furnish an entire unit, whether it's a big house or a small property. It's got to have pots, pans, plates, salt, pepper, ketchup, bottles of water, washer and dryer, couch, linens, decor. And that's the one that Jewel should talk about because she's a decor queen. I mean, she basically has a Pier 1 in my garage. But rest in peace, by the way. I heard they shut down permanently now.
Pour one out.
It's now a gun store here in Fairbanks, and they did a pretty good job turning it into a shooting range as well. So,
I'm not even sad.
They still have the Pier 1 sign up with a bunch of bullet holes in it.
Oh, they do? Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, if you walk in the front door, look up, it says Pier 1 there with bullet holes in it. But anyway, so there's an upfront cost with Airbnbs, and that's the thing that most people don't even think about. They call me and they're like, hey, I'm ready to turn into an Airbnb. I'm like, cool, call me when it's ready. Well, you're not going to bring in furniture? Like, sorry, I don't work for Sadler's. And even if I did, all my Airbnbs would look alike because there's about 4 versions of everything. So we really want people to express themselves. Like, look at Airbnb and see what's doing well and not well, but really make it your dream vacation property. And that's where we're struggling a little bit. Most people want to take the cheap route and just, I bought a used couch on Facebook. Okay, well, that's not going to do as well as that, pampered leather, recliner that you were going to buy from wherever.
Yeah.
So The upfront cost is huge. On average, between $6,000 for a smaller property to $15,000 for a larger property. And it also depends on what you do with it, what you have, what you can reuse. A lot of people leave some stuff behind and then buy some more. Other people take everything with them and start from scratch. And some people like abandon everything they own and then buy new. I would steer you towards this is an investment. And that's how we need to start thinking about these things. This is not just you taking advantage of an opportunity. This is you making an investment into a business. So we also coach people with the tax write-offs and stuff like that. You want to go buy $15,000 worth of furniture? Write that off. You're now operating a business and you're getting about a 10 to 15% discount on what you're paying for because you're saving that on taxes on the back end.
Yeah.
Write-offs don't mean you don't pay for them, by the way. That's a rumor that's been going around. I think TikTok started it. A write-off just means you get a discount on your taxable income. It doesn't mean it's free.
I know. I remember...
it's a write-off. It's a write-off.
When we were at my first brokerage, we had one agent who didn't understand that. It's like she wanted the broker to buy stuff for us. He's like, yeah, just, everything we do costs money. And they're like, it's a write-off. And he's like, that means it's not free.
I still pay for it. I just get to save a little bit on income.
You basically don't pay the tax. It doesn't count as income anymore. I think you're describing exactly a David and Goliath situation here. Because if you go against Goliath, which is the hotel chains, and you do what Goliath is doing and you swing a big heavy sword around and you're a little guy, you're going to get smote. You're going to get put down.
Oh, but look at Vegas.
What's that?
Look at Vegas. The hotels ganged together, created a lobbyist group, and said Las Vegas does not allow Airbnbs anymore.
I hate that.
And the politicians passed it because of the money they got from the hotels.
I hate that so much.
Then you go to other places like Arizona, which is saying you can only have one Airbnb per person.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a loophole there. Create an LLC. There are separate entities. You can have as many as you want, but now you're paying a little bit extra in tax.
I think it's easy to not like Airbnbs because everyone thinks, I don't want an Airbnb in my neighborhood.
My subdivision is arguing about it right now. My subdivision wants to pass covenants banning Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Why? Well, we don't know these people. Well, okay. Well, I really don't know my neighbors that well either.
It used to be, and what you're telling me, I think this may go away. Well, let me finish my thought on the David and Goliath. So if you're David, you don't swing a big heavy sword. You stand back and you shoot a rock at him so fast it's got the same stopping force of a 45. It's like Goliath didn't stand a chance. Everyone thinks it was like.
If you're accurate.
Yeah. If you know how to
give me a slingshot, Goliath might actually win.
Exactly. But if you know what you're doing, it's like Goliath didn't have a chance. He was like 20 yards away. What's he going to do?
I'll do an Achilles.
Exactly. So by doing those things that make you different is the things that are going to work out. And you see that in every business.
You got to stand out.
Yeah.
You've got to stand. If you're just like everybody else, I talk about this with my new realtors, with my Airbnb hosts, with everybody. Like, we're in the customer service industry. Why would you want to buy a house with Nick Williams? Mm-hmm. Why would you want to stay in an AK BNB Management property? Why would somebody with all of these options out there, 400 realtors in Fairbanks, over 2,000, almost 3,000 Airbnbs in Fairbanks, North Pole?
I thought it was like 1,200. Wow.
Huge.
It's grown.
Why would you pick this realtor or that Airbnb to stay in? You got to make a name for yourself. You got to stand out. You got to have extra services. You got to provide simplicity, all that stuff. So, that's kind of what we try to coach people to do.
Well, and I have a few thoughts on that. First, we'll talk about the Vegas stuff. So there are some perceived downsides to short-term rentals, which I think one of them is going away. One was the rising property values because people were willing to pay so much more if they short-term rented it because they were getting 2 and 3 times the profit.
Correct.
It seems like that margin is disappearing a bit. You should still make more profit because it is more of a headache than like a long term. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that people are now like, oh, if I could get $1,000 rent, I'm going to make $3,000. Again, it can happen, but
also management fees step in there too. I mean,
you got a lot more expenses.
Managers between 10 and 15%. Your Airbnb management companies are between 20 and 40% now.
Right.
And then you have so many knockoffs too. I mean, Evolve does a great job advertising your property, but they won't do the client communications, they won't do the cleaners, they won't do all these other things. So there are other options out there to save a penny, but again, it's an investment. So you want to go with the discount brokerage or do you want to go with the full service brokerage?
Yeah.
Those are your options.
Yeah. The other, I think maybe the biggest one is that tenants feel like long-term tenants feel like their rents are rising and they have less options because and I don't know that I believe this. I don't know. It's kind of tough. I kind of do, but I hate to be a lot.
I think I know where you're going.
Yeah. Where you're saying, hey, you're taking what could be a long-term rental and making it a short-term rental. So now I used to have 100 options. Now I have 70 options or whatever. And not that you have that many around here, right. But, and that's probably realistic. I hate to be the guy what do they call it?
Well, you're right. There's a finite number of buildings. Right. So your argument is correct that, if we had 100 buildings and 50 of them were rentals and 50 of them were homeowners, then you got 50-50. Now we slid this other category of Airbnbs in there, and it's 33 homeowners, 33 rentals, and 33 Airbnbs. Well, You're right. Now you have less options. You had 50, now you have 33. But I also disagree with that, because if you look at the properties that we really are managing that are turning into successful long-term, sustainable short-term rentals, right? Long-term, short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Those are not properties that normally get rented out. Those are single-family homes, and I guess the buyers can make the argument of, now I have less options to buy a home, but you could have bought that Airbnb as well and turned it into a home.
I do think it's a limited mindset. So
it's a pathetic mindset. It's a crybaby mindset.
Yeah, it can be, because you don't look at the future rolling effects. Because if landlords, long-term, short-term, midterm, anything, if people are profitable, guess what they want to do more of? They want to make more money. That's always the way it goes. So I think the biggest pusher of new construction and things like that is people wanting, obviously, to make money. The builder themselves, although I just heard a builder in town is about to retire, and he's making like $10,000 to $15,000 every new construction.
Yeah.
He built a whole building.
You make 10 grand.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like, and then you write a check
then
to your agent.
Then you wonder, why do we only build 20 to 30 homes a year in Fairbanks?
Yeah.
The profit's not there. The employees went from like $22 to $40 an hour. The material went from, I think it was $13 a sheet of plywood to like $50 a sheet of plywood. Like, everything has doubled and tripled in price. So that cuts into profit margins. And then people are like, well, these lazy builders don't want to build 20, 30 homes anymore. Yeah, I wouldn't either if I was putting all of that effort into it and making 10 grand.
I'd get my real estate license.
I would get my real estate license and sell the houses. Or I would do exactly what, Joe and Rick did and partner up and build my own properties.
Yeah.
Still use the logistics, the labor, everything I have on payroll, build my own properties. If I build 100 units and rent them out for $1,000 a month, guess what? I just made $100,000 that month.
Yeah.
Minus some expenses. Cool. You made $75,000 that month. Now, 100 units is an inflated number, but you very quickly, if you partner with a builder, you get there.
So here's a funny wage story about up here. One of my buddy's granddaughters just turned 16, and she went to get her very first job. She has no experience. She didn't do like some business mowing lawns. She's nothing, no experience. She goes to Sonic here in town, and they go through the interview. They're like, all right, we want you. $15 an hour, which is like kind of crazy when you really think about it. But it's like, hey, that's fine. That's where we're at these days. $15 an hour. She's like, yeah, I was really expecting 17. And they're like, okay. And she's never worked a job at all. I was like, for one, way to go to have the guts to even ask for it, because I would have not asked for any kind of, I would have been happy to get whatever.
Yeah.
When you're 16, like, you're just happy to have
a job.
I know.
You're not going to make me wait until I'm 18.
So I was telling my daughters, I was like, 100% they can just say no. Like, you should ask. But anyways, that's kind of the climate we're in, where they're like needing anybody.
My neighbors are 10, 11, 12. And they got together and they're starting a neighborhood business where when people go on vacation, they'll water your plants, they'll walk your dogs, that kind of stuff. And we got the flyer the other day, and cute girls, we're going to support them. They're going to walk my dog for me, but they want $25 an hour.
Holy
one. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, babe, I can literally get a licensed certified dog trainer to walk my dog for less money than the neighborhood kids. But, they don't have full-time jobs.
How's Atlas doing?
He's doing good.
Good.
He's going to turn into a real great dog.
I was after our breakup. The real
loss was Atlas over my dog.
I know. Atlas still likes me, I think, every time I've gone there. So
my 1.5 Doberman loves this. You look like a poodle. That's why.
I know.
He can relate to you.
I know. We should do a photo shoot, you and I, with our dogs.
I look like my dog. You look like your dog.
I know. It's pretty hilarious.
It's kind of creepy if you think about it.
I know. Randy brought up the other day. She's like, you still got that dog that looks exactly like you? I was like, I don't know. I'm a little vain. I can't help myself.
They go to the same hairdresser.
So being a real estate agent, we both know when we're selling a house.
We're licensees, not agents.
I am a broker, and so are you now. Congrats. A couple of brokers sitting across the table from each other. So being that, when we sell a house, we know how important photography and the online presence is. I think it is
the most important.
It's your new first impression.
It is the first thing.
That new curb appeal, you could say. Almost.
You can have a beautiful house. If you have crappy pictures, no one's going to come look at it.
Yeah.
If you have a crappy house, nice pictures, people will at least still come look at it.
Yeah.
You might be told it's a crappy house afterwards, but they still come and look at it.
Almost the greatest compliment, which people are going to hate hearing this, is when a buyer walks through the house like, God, this doesn't look like the photos. And it's hard. And I always tell them, even if it's not my house, I was like, listen, when you go to sell your house, you're going to want and they're like, it's true. I want mine to look as good as possible. So
You
we're
gotta
not
turn the
lying
script
about
on
it.
and be like, hey, right now you're a buyer. The second you own the house, you're a seller. Right?
Yeah.
So keep this in mind.
Yeah.
Like, learn from what you bought and how it was presented because you want to do the same thing.
We do want to present as accurate as possible. So we're not like putting fake stuff in.
We're not editing it. I mean, so when we're editing it, we're doing color corrections. We're getting rid of glares. We're just making the property look as good as possible. We're not going in there. No, I'm not doing anything. My editor's doing it. Yeah. But we're not going in there and removing, dirt. We're not going in there and changing the colors of the walls. We're not using a wide angle lens to make it look, well, most of us aren't. Using wide angle lenses to make it look as big as possible. It is accurate photography. It's just refined photography versus a cell phone picture.
Yeah. So you have
that one realtor that still has the date stamps.
Oh my God.
Are you using
it's got to be a point and shoot.
It's got to be. I don't even think I could add that to the burnt in one too. It's not like a digital. It's like the old.
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you do that?
And maybe he's got a disposable camera out there. I'm not sure.
Why? You got a cell phone in your pocket too.
I got the flip phone blurry.
There's
picture.
a few of them, so we're not targeting one specific.
Yeah, I don't want to. But
there's about 3 of them that I'm like, how?
But you will legitimately and this is a bit of a side note. I'll make the point is that you will make more money with better photos. So on the Airbnb side, I'm sure you're seeing that as well.
Absolutely. And that's why Airbnb photography is one level beyond real estate photography. Real estate photography, we're taking pictures of your home. With Airbnb and short-term rental photography, we're also highlighting your features. So you're going to see a lot more close-up shots of the towels that are being provided, the bedding that's being provided, the decor in the house, because we really want you to get a sense of the vibe in the property. Whereas with real estate photography, it's more about the flow of the property. Like, where is the bedrooms? Can you look through this room into that room? Now virtual staging is becoming popular to kind of fill the space if it's a vacant property. But even that doesn't show as well as a perfectly staged short-term rental with decor set to entice people to rent with you.
Because you have to think when you're looking, and again, someone who uses short-term rentals a lot, the guest side of it. When we look at places, I am cheap. However, I do not get the cheapest place. So you can be that guy if you want. That's fine.
Mid-tier is where you want to be because the expensive ones have a lower occupancy rate, but they're making more money per night. Less wear and tear.
Yeah.
The cheaper properties are booked 90% of the time, charging $85 a night, but they're just getting run through. They're shutting down for 2 weeks for repairs, and also people live different ways. And let's just say that the people that spend $85 live a different way than the people that are spending $400.
Yeah, that's common.
And so
even in the long term,
you can read between the lines what I'm saying, but there's some dirty people out there and there's some less dirty. That being said, you can have somebody paying $500 a night and wreck a place. So it's not even a law. It's not the law of gravity.
No.
But it's definitely it's a good precursor.
Yeah, exactly. So when I'm looking, we're looking at usually, again, like you're saying, mid-tier, but then we're finding the ones like I should say when I say we, my wife, she will spend weeks. Like when we went to Hawaii, she spent a ton of time.
1 hour.
Yeah, that's.
So you spend more than an hour, you're wasting your own time.
I know.
You might as well pay more because your time is money.
Well, and then she wants my input because she has a really hard time making decisions. She gets decision fatigue pretty quickly. Yeah. And I'm like, listen, if you like it, I like it.
You want my tips on how to pick a good Airbnb?
No, go ahead.
All right. First thing is figure out where you want to be, right? Because the most expensive thing is not going to actually be your stay because you're getting a return on your investment there. What is important is the time and the money you have to spend to get to places. So location is the most important. And normally if you're going to a big city like Vienna, Berlin, New York, you want to be right in the heart of the city. So if you are going to New York and you're looking for an Airbnb, look at Times Square. Look at those areas that you want to be in. But if you're coming to Fairbanks, look on the outskirts. Look, you're really coming up here to experience Alaska, to be alone in the woods, if you will. Watch out for skinwalkers.
They're everywhere.
They exist. Look for the areas where you really want to be. So if you're going to come up here and go hiking, camping, gold mining, ATV rentals, be on Chena Hot Springs, be on Gilmore Trail, be on Farmers Loop, be in those areas that are close to what you're trying to do. If you're coming to Fairbanks to look at museums, eat food, and hang out downtown, well, then stay downtown in a hotel or one of the few Airbnbs that are downtown. But so that's number one is location. The second thing is once you have your location dialed in, because you're going to be overwhelmed looking at 3,000 Airbnbs in our 50-mile radius. So now that you broke it down to about a 10-mile radius, now look at the ones that have the number of bedrooms that you need, the ones that have those amenities. Like let's say you in the winter, you want a wood fireplace because in lower 48, there aren't a lot of those. Go get the one that has a fireplace. If you want to sit in a hot tub and look at the northern lights, go get the one with the hot tub. Really tailor your vacation to what you're looking for. Do you want to stay in a vinyl sided 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house just like you live in? Or do you want to come up here and stay in a 2-bedroom cabin and experience Alaska? There's no right or wrong answer there. It's just pick the ones that are more like what you're trying to experience. And the money isn't, the difference between this one and that one is going to be $50 a night. Mm-hmm. The difference in the experience is going to be thousands of dollars a night,
yeah.
Right? So pick the one that has the best experience for you, because you want to leave Fairbanks thinking, man, that was really cool. I want to come back, and not be like, well, I mean, I just felt like I was at home in a small town.
I think people underestimate, when I say people, I mean me, generally being as cheap as I am, underestimate how much impact the place you stay has. So when we went to Hawaii, we picked a great place and we were very happy with it. However, we ended up being in that place a lot more than I expected because the weather kind of was a little, it was a little rainy. Mm-hmm. So we didn't, which again, ended up being great. We had a little porch. We were up really high. We had a great view. All the stuff was cool and awesome on it. But if we had gone really cheap and didn't have those things and we were stuck in there for like 4 extra hours when we didn't really want to be there for 4 hours. So don't make a stay the place where you sleep unless you want to do the hostel style or whatever. And that's an experience too, to be honest.
I did it all through my 20s.
Yeah.
And they're probably my best memories.
Yeah.
So I love the hostel. That's how I met people traveling, stuff like that. So that is great. But at the same time, at this point in my life where I'm traveling with my wife, my daughter, or somebody like that, like I don't want to stay in a bunk room with 3 strangers. I want my privacy. I want to have that. I want to create those family memories, not those friend memories.
But yeah,
but if you're traveling by yourself, stay in a hostel or get a bunch of friends to come with you and stay in a really nice Airbnb.
Yeah, that's another fun thing that you can't do. I love doing that. My point was make this a part of the experience. Yeah. And don't think of it as some separate thing that you just have to have. You do have to have it where you're going to be sleeping, but it's like, hey, you're going to pay for this excursion or whatever you're going to be doing when you're here or wherever you go. Also think like, hey, where we stay is going to be important. We're probably going to spend the most time there just because we're going to sleep there. A third of the time is going to be there automatically.
That would be my third tip, is really prioritize those places with nice beds. I care less about what kind of coffee machine you have or whether the appliances are stainless steel or white. I don't care if it's a gas range or an electric range. I care, is that a really nice, comfortable bed, or am I sleeping on a 10-year-old Sealy mattress that's probably worn out?
Right. So. Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense. Okay, so the online is huge when you're doing this because that's really the only thing. Because when you're looking for 100%. Houses, you have a home tour.
100%.
You don't have a home tour on Airbnb. You're showing up and you're hoping for the best. So you do want to be as honest as possible too, because the review side, that's another thing.
By the way, Airbnb, if you're listening, you should add a virtual option where people can walk through the property. Zillow has it. Matterport has it. I don't know why other websites don't use the same technology.
So what is the number one thing Airbnb owners, what's their biggest issue, whether they're being managed or you as managers come across generally?
Cleaners, 100%. And that's more for the non-managed ones. Hopefully, most managed properties have their cleaners figured out. That is our growth restriction. We have no issues with our current Airbnbs. We can clean them, no problem, but I can only on-ramp 1 or 2 properties a month because I have to hire new cleaners or subcontract out to a cleaning company for every single one, and I can only take on their capacity. What I'm not willing to do with my company is essentially grow so quickly that we start letting people down. The first, and this seems selfish, but it makes sense if you boil it down. The number one thing we care about is our reputation. Mm-hmm. Because by having a good reputation, that means we're providing good customer service. So while sounding selfish, saying my reputation matters most, I really mean the service we provide our clients is of the utmost importance.
Well, you wouldn't have a good reputation.
Because it reflects.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, if it's something that's going to embarrass us, if it's something that we don't think we can manage, if we can't make you money, the first thing I'm going to tell you, I got to tell this to a client today who wants us to manage their Airbnb, but they're on a small holding tank. It's 1-bedroom unit. It's way out of town. We don't have cleaners that service that area. I have to turn them down. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to. I think it'd be a successful Airbnb if we could dedicate the resources to it, but we can't without detracting from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, is I can't let my 2-year host down because I want to bring on this new person across, the Gulf Valley.
Well, this is super important for someone who's looking to buy for an Airbnb, because you got to think, because a lot of people do want to cheap out on this.
So you should really find a realtor who also owns a management company to guide you through this process. I'm just saying.
I can think of only one. But yeah, so
there's 2 of us, but we're not going to mention the other one.
But it is important because you're looking at these things, and I do have clients that are it's very common. They're like, hey, we want to do short-term rentals. It's Alaska. It's a touristy area. We're looking to make money. And we go out to this property, and it's like, all right, you're going to have to level this foundation all the time, which that's not the end of the world. But all the things like
unless you let it go, then it can.
Unless you let it go, but yeah, it's like here's the things that you're going to have to go with this property in particular. Yes, it is $50,000 cheaper than maybe something comparable closer to town or whatever. But yeah, people forget that, especially if you're out of state and you absolutely have to have a management company. And if you absolutely have to have a management company, get that squared away before you write an offer, before you start looking at any houses. I'd say
what I see all the time that I think is kind of funny is nobody balks at hiring a property manager for their long-term rentals. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to badmouth their industry, but what do you get returned for your money? Mm-hmm. But we often hear the struggle, like, I can do my own Airbnb. I'm like, hold on, more work than a long-term rental, but less value in the representation.
Right.
In their minds, right?
Yeah.
And so, I am the worst salesperson in the world because I'll tell them, hey, try it on your own for 6 months, and then give me a call back and let me know how you're doing.
Yeah.
And at 6 months, usually they call me and want me to start managing their properties.
Yeah.
The other hesitation we see is because it's a flat fee. It's a percentage, just like commission in real estate. We charge, I'll tell you my numbers, but we are the cheapest one that I know in town. We're 20% of your gross profits. Okay. And that sounds like a huge number. And it is, but if you look at what we do for you, you're getting a service. Mm-hmm. The big expensive properties, the $1 million properties with the pools, the unique properties that were featured on television, those properties that I'm specifically referencing that I'm talking about, don't want us to manage them because 20% of what they're projected to make is a huge 5-digit number. Mm-hmm. Well, is the service really worth 30, 40, 50 grand? Mm-hmm. Debatable. But the ones that don't balk at it are the small 1-bedroom units that are going to pay us the same 20%, but we're only making $8,000, $9,000 off them a year. Mm-hmm. But the big ones are the ones that actually need our help, whereas those little ones can probably manage themselves pretty easily.
Yeah.
And so it's this dichotomy in the market of like, I got to prove to you my value.
Yeah.
But is that value even equating to what you would or would not be making? Mm-hmm. And so that's the debate that a lot of people have, but time is always the true test.
Yeah. It's a simple one. Value is always really tough for people to sell. And I think it's people who aren't salesmen, because your mind, once you become, or at least you become a somewhat good salesman, is it shifts around how you're selling something. So for real estate agents, of course, we're paid by commission. Mm-hmm. For you, you're getting paid by a percentage of gross profits, all the things.
So the more money you make, the more money we make.
Yeah.
And that's how we married it up. We could have done a flat fee, $5,000 per property. Well, if you only make $2,000, it's going to really be painful to write me a $3,000 check.
Right.
But with your mortgage and expenses on top of that.
Yeah.
But if we went in and said, we'll make a percentage of your profits. Okay, you have a good month, we have a good month. You have a bad month, we have a bad month. You don't have any income that month, you're not paying us that month.
Yeah. And that's the thing is you look at people look at it as one pie, where they're saying like, hey, Mr. Real Estate Agent, because that's what I'm familiar with, you're going to take generally whatever you negotiate around 6% of my total sales. Why don't I do it myself? It's like, okay, well, let me show you all the reasons I'm going to make you 6% or more on the sales side anyway. So you can almost just call me free. But even besides that, here's all the headaches I'm going to remove for you.
Just look at the statistics. Yeah. 10% of real estate agent transactions fail. Mm-hmm. 60% of FSBO transactions fail.
Yeah.
You look at the average profit of
Explain a FSBO. A lot
of FSBO,
people.
For sale by owner. So it's just somebody that doesn't want to use a realtor to sell and advertise their property. Mm-hmm. Completely legal, allowed in all 50 states. You do not have to use a real estate agent.
To sell your own property.
To sell your own property.
Not somebody else's.
Somebody else's property, you have to be licensed.
Yeah.
Correct? But what you don't see is also the profitability ratings between what a average seller makes with a realtor versus without. And the sales prices are generally like 15% higher. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, you're paying 6%, but you're making 15% more.
Well, these are averages too.
These are averages. There's great examples and bad examples too.
Yeah, but what I like to say is these are average agents. And if we know a lot of agents, the average agent, if you think of the average IQ.
Let's talk about the average agent. The average agent in America is 65 years old and sells 4 houses a year.
Wow.
Actually, I think it just went up to 5. 5 houses a year.
Yeah.
And then you look at your top producing agent in the market's probably selling 100 to 150 properties a year solo. You got teams that lump all their numbers together. And that's always convoluted. But let's say 100 to 150 properties a year, grossing somewhere between $20 and $50 million in sales. So you extrapolate that, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of real estate agents in America, in
Yeah.
Alaska and Fairbanks. We got 400 here. I could name maybe 100 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm getting contracts from people daily that I'm like, who are you? Like,
Right.
I've never heard of you.
I know. We're getting somebody new every day, it feels like, which is kind of shocking in the real estate market we're in. I think there's a lot of fear and uncertainty. And we're certainly getting a lot less new agents than we used to.
A lot slower, yeah.
Yeah, a lot slower, but they're still coming on.
Now we're actually in a downside. We're seeing more people falling off, more people getting part-time jobs. I mean, I don't know a lot of realtors that only do real estate right now. A lot of them, and I'm one of them, sadly, because I do venture out in this Airbnb world as well. So that is my side job.
That's a little different. So
I think it's the same because I'm still doing real estate. I'm just offering a different service.
Yeah.
But it is a different company, different entity, LLC. So therefore, I guess I got a side job too. But you got realtors that have dirt work businesses. You have realtors that are handymen now. You have realtors that are getting into advertising. You got realtors that are getting into coaching and social media for income, not just for, advertising.
Well, there's two directions to go. So you have the agent who can't do it full time because it doesn't meet their financial needs.
And then that's a whole nother category.
So they're reaching out for other income sources, which I'm not trying to put anybody down for this. I've had up and down years.
We're all hustling. We're all trying to provide for a family. There's no shame.
And then there's agents, and these are usually the top agents that have graduated into other things.
I agree.
And that's where
rental management,
exactly,
property portfolios,
where it's like, hey, I don't need this other income, but a lot of times, and this is going to sound pretentious, I have so much money, I got to put my money somewhere.
I got to make my money do something.
You got to, it's always the case. You got to make your money earn it twice. Like you can't just leave it in a savings account.
That's the great thing about being in this industry is you can buy your own products.
Yeah.
If you're in some other industries, maybe you don't. Right?
Yeah.
And so the money that we do make off of real estate, most realtors reinvest back into real estate.
Because we know it. But the general point that I made 25 minutes ago was that the value exchange, people always think money is the most important thing. And money is important when you're trying to make a profit, obviously. But it's like, hey, look at the things I'm giving you on the real estate agent, broker side, or on what we're talking about, which is the management side. It's like, yes, I am taking a percentage of your profits, but this is going to be freeing you to make more profits and possibly...
And also it's coming out of your profits. It's not coming out of your pocket.
Well, you should be pushing their profits up as well. Like that's the whole goal. So it's like, hey, we're going to be pushing your profits up, but also you're taking away... It's a huge headache. It takes a lot of time.
We had a host that decided to part ways with us. It was amicable. We didn't feel like we were living up to what we wanted to make for that property because it was very unique. Mm-hmm. But we were still making him a profit. Every month he was getting a check in the mail and literally did nothing. Just by owning this asset and hiring us, there was money being delivered to his account. We see a mailbox account, right? Direct deposit, but every single month. Then he went on his own thinking he could do better because there was some shortfall for us, and that Airbnb shut down within 6 months. Yeah. Completely. And now there's no more mailbox money. So what's worse? Paying somebody a percentage of your profits, right? Gross. Mm-hmm. Well, depending on what other services we tack on, if you want landscaping, snow removal, extras, we don't surcharge for those, but we do bill you to direct invoice.
Right.
And so, they're not always profitable, but within 6 months, so he couldn't find cleaners. He went from 7 websites to just Airbnb and all these issues. He wound up failing. So what's better, making a little bit of money every single month, but doing nothing, or doing a lot and ultimately failing and now having no money?
That's always the argument, man. It's, do you want the whole pie of nothing, or do you want a small percentage of
boils
a
down
bigger
to greed,
pie?
and we're all greedy. Like we're all sinners, right? But and we all want as much money as possible. But what I noticed is the people that are starting out in business, and any business, right, always see every dollar as their dollar. Mm-hmm. And even me as a self-employed realtor, right? So like my money is my money, whether it's my business account or personal account. I can go to Walmart and spend $1,000 out of my business account if I wanted to, and just call it a withdrawal or an owner withdrawal. But what I noticed too now is I got to look at it as a business. I got overhead, I got rents, I got other things that I got to spend money on. So that's not my money. And when I changed that mindset from all my money's my money to this is my money and this is my business's money, I was able to grow my business exponentially faster and actually make more of my money because I could pay myself a higher salary now. Because of the advertising that I spent the money on. Yeah. Whereas, I can make $100,000 a year, or I can make $80,000 a year and put 20 towards advertising. Well, that 80-20 is going to be better than the 100 cash because now I'm growing that business. I'm getting more eyes on me. And now next year I can make 120, put 40 towards advertising, keep my 80 that I lived off of. right?
Yep.
Next thing you know, I'm making 150. I can pay myself 100 and put 50. And it just keeps going like
Right.
that. And if you look at it as a stair-stepping way over time, you're always going to be more profitable and have more money than if you just try to squeeze every penny out of every individual transaction.
I think that's what people forget, and it kind of loses scale to a lot of people. And I've noticed this in my own life and personal finances, but also when you start getting into businesses that have big numbers, people think like, how can you spend $50,000 a year? That's my income on advertising and stuff. It's like, well, maybe I didn't do it my first year, but I know that $50,000 makes me $75,000. So it's like, how many times would you put $50,000 into a machine that spits out 75? It's like you would shove it in as fast as you could.
Going,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. And so that's
but it's something weird when a human is now taking your money and putting it in the machine and taking 50 cents. Like now it's the same concept. You're doing nothing and you're getting free money, but because there's a middleman, the emotional pain, and that's what it's all is. Our problem with getting guests to sign up is the emotional stress of getting your own Airbnb set up, which is now why we partner with an interior designer that will design your entire property, but you have to pay them for that.
Who's doing that?
Erin.
Oh, okay.
The same one that did our office over in West Fairbanks.
Yeah.
So we partner with her, and I'm telling everybody, if you need help, I'm here and I'm free. But all I'm going to say is that looks good, that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Right? She will actually pick the items, design the floor plan, do a consultation with you where like, are you trying to go with a rustic Alaskan cabin or industrial, farmhouse, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And so she's amazing. She does great work. She picks everything for you. She'll order it for you. She'll figure out the shipping and the logistics. The only thing you got to do is put it together. And then she'll stage it. She just doesn't sit there with a screwdriver and assemble things.
The worst job ever invented.
Reading Swedish instructions.
The issue with the money machine that everybody has, and myself included, I'm still trying to figure this out myself, is that there is always a shroud. You don't know, you never know exactly what's making you all your money. Like you can have a pretty good idea, and this is with marketing in specific. I always have this great quote that says, hey, half of my marketing makes me 95% of my money. The other half does nothing for me.
Yeah.
I don't know which half it is. And that's usually how it goes. Like
there's a lot I block off December every year to kind of go back and look at what advertising dollars made me money and what advertising dollars were wasted.
Yeah.
What programs had a good return on investment, which ones didn't.
Yeah.
And if you're a realtor or anybody in sales, anybody selling something, whether it's a product or a service, you should do an annual review on where you're putting your money because too many people just put it out there thinking it's doing what it's supposed to do and it's not.
Spoiler alert, everybody is in sales in some manner. Even if you're an engineer working a desk job, you're selling something.
Right. Let's go back to the septic system company here in town that we went and looked at a year and a half ago. A lot of those people think they're just making septic systems. Well, the company that you're working for is selling them.
Yeah.
If the company doesn't sell them, you don't have a job anymore.
Yep.
So make them as best as possible so the company can sell the best product so that you can continue to have a job.
Yep. It's important.
It goes back to that whole hourly rate thing too. Like if you're only producing $20 an hour for the company, they're going to go broke if they pay you $45 an hour.
Yeah.
The return on investment for your service as the employee isn't there.
It's a tough one when you start getting bigger and bigger. But the goal is always, if I hire somebody, they're producing more money at the end of this money machine than, and there's other things businesses do. I hate to be so reductive because you can have fulfillment, you can have purpose.
People understand it.
You got to have to be able to make money. So if you hire somebody for $45 an hour, they at minimum need to make $45 an hour, or
at a bare minimum, because you still got to figure in there the company's paying a 7.5% tax on you.
Right.
So and then you got payroll on top of that.
Break even is not the goal when you hire somebody.
I'm paying somebody $20 an hour, they almost need to be making me $50 an hour.
Yeah. And that's why salespeople end up making more than pretty much anybody in a company almost always, because it is so directly
feeding the income. You sold, like I said, $50 million worth of real estate. There's value there.
Yeah. We paid you $100,000 last year and you made us, you can look and you say profit, you made us $200,000. It's like, can we have more of you or can we give you a raise? That's why we're usually on commission because it's,
percentage of the profit, just like this Airbnb business, right? Yep. I don't want to take I don't want to run a successful Airbnb and then basically have my clients make $500 and me make $4,000.
Yeah.
I want to ride their successful coattails to the top.
Yeah.
And so I do want them to make $10,000 a month because then I make $2,000 a month.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is a personal interest in it, but I can't accomplish that without providing the interest to the client.
Well, on the real estate sales side again, why do we care? Why would we give someone advice on just have a listing that's coming up that he's like, oh, I was wanting the price to be higher. And it's like, well, here's some things. You have pink carpet in there that's pretty old. Your light fixtures are outdated and different things.
Gold, chandeliers.
And beyond me just being nice, which I would probably do it anyways, why would I want to do that? It's because I know if he does upgrade these things, for one, he'll get more money. He'll be happier. I'll get a little bit. It's not much because we are such a small percentage. I'll get a little more money, which is great. But also I know things will sell faster. Mind,
if I sell for $5,000 more, I'm making like $35 more. Like people got to remember that. Like when they're like, oh, well, you just want to price it low so you can sell it quick. I'm like, I'm pricing it $10,000 low because of condition.
Right.
So I'm giving up $15, $30. Like it's not, I'm not getting rich off this.
Yeah. And that's the goal is though, like, hey, it makes our job way easier. I love when I get feedback that I can send to my seller saying they love the place and we're writing an offer and we're getting 3 offers in or whatever.
I love that feeling. Whereas it's like, well, I guess it's the best option we have. I'm like, oh, well, I don't kind of really want you to buy in this.
Well, and that's why we become such generalists in things. That's why we are giving advice on decor and stuff. And it's like, this is really outside my wheelhouse and like we should get somebody in here, but I do know that people don't like pink carpet at this juncture, so let's...
Carpet in the bathroom. Nobody likes it.
Nobody wants carpet in their bathroom.
I don't know a single person that wants carpet in their bathroom. So if you have it, rip it up, spend the $400 to put some flooring down, and now you have a property that will sell twice as fast. Yep. Which means you save 2 mortgage payments. The average mortgage right now is $2,500. I just saved you $5,000 by investing $500 of your money into removing carpet.
And here's what I always boil it down to. I just did a pricing episode, which is probably coming out today because yours is going to come out next week. But is the faster your home sells, the more it sells for. Right. And so being able to sell things quicker is not just because we want our check faster, although we do appreciate that. And most people do want to sell fast, is we know just the way sales work. If you sit on the market for 4 months, people start to question things and it starts to degrade things like,
Here's some advice that a lot of realtors are going to get mad about, but I'm going to tell you, if you're selling your home, this is what you should do. You go and meet with a realtor. They're going to tell you the fee 6%. You say this right here. I want your fee to be 5%, but if you sell my house, if you get it pending under contract before the market average, I'll give you a 0.5% bonus. That way that listing agent will still make their 3%, which they're gunning after, right? They're half of that commission. Mm-hmm. And you only have to pay it if they beat the market's average. And the market average right now in Fairbanks is like 35 days. Mm-hmm. So if you can get a property pending in under 35 days, you deserve a bonus. Yeah. And if we did an incentive based like that, you would see sellers ending up with probably more money, being more happier to pay a commission. But it also boils down to this whole lawsuit with NAR and the buyer's agent commission that sellers have been paying for years. Not to get off topic here.
We go as far as you want.
But, come August, sellers will not need to, and they already don't have to, right?
That's
so something we got to be really clear here. You never had to pay a buyer's agent.
It's always been negotiable, but now it's always been negotiable.
The problem is your house won't sell, and this might be for ethical reasons or just statistical purposes. But, if I'm a realtor and I have a client who cannot afford to pay me, why would I show them a property where the seller is saying, I'm not going to pay you? In the end, I'm not getting paid for this. And everyone's like, well, you greedy realtors are just doing it for the money. Well, why do you work at McDonald's at 40 hours a week? For the money. Yeah. If McDonald's said, hey, we want you to work next week, but we're not going to pay you, will you show up for work? Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. Replace McDonald's with whatever your job is, and that's what we do. So we do make a living off of this. Yeah. I don't understand how people don't understand that. Yeah. This is our livelihood.
Yeah. No, I get it. Well, the issue is we make such large chunks. So you get paid per hour at a time. Yeah.
I've went 3 months without any pay.
Yeah.
Oh. And then I made $20,000 in 1 month, yes, there's ebbs and flows. In the end, though, I make $150,000 a year.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
that's what I make a year. I got college professors that make more than me. I got attorneys and dentists that make more than me. I got small business owners that double my income annually. Mm-hmm. We're not multi-billion. We're not Ryan Serhant here.
Yeah, I was going to say there are some Ryan Serhants in the world.
There are some great realtors out there that are selling $1 million mansions and making a $250,000 commission. Right. But you got to look at the people that they're working for. The realtor that works for the billionaires is a millionaire. Mm-hmm. The realtor that works for 1,000 years is 100 year. We're always one level behind our clientele base because we're making money off of their assets, off of their sales. So if I sell a bunch of land, I'm going to make less money than if I sell a bunch of lakefront mansions. Mm-hmm. But the people I work for that own the land are probably a blue collar truck driver, and the guy owning the lakefront property probably owns MIT or Microsoft or something, right? So,
well, what it all comes down to as the seller, because since we're talking about this and the buyer's commission and all that, it's like let's look
for sellers. Keep paying buyer's agent commissions, otherwise you're going to see your property tank. and if anything, just a lower commission and see what works, and then add incentives back in.
Here's what'll happen, and because we have almost a direct comparison with you and Jewel that I'm thinking about. I want to have this as a case study, so we need all the numbers really tight. But basically, in general, offered what was an expected of a commission on one house for the buyer's agent, and the other one, we're done, baby. We just filled up the memory card. That's okay. No, it's okay. We're still going on the audio side. So video blacked out. Sorry, guys. If you've made it this far, thank you. I need to get a bigger memory card.
We're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. So anyways, didn't offer a full commission on the one that was on the same exact street.
I believe it was 1%.
Right. So it wasn't even zero.
Seller offered, and the other seller, we're not going to pick sides here, offered your standard 2.5.
Yeah. So what happened is I don't know if it's still sitting on the market.
It sold. So they wound up doing a $5,000 price drop and upping the commission by 1.5% to 2.5%.
Oh, so they got to the normal range.
And it sold like 2 days after it hit 2.5%.
Because yours went with 6 offers?
Mine went coming soon. We were on the market for 1 day, 6 offers, 7 showings. And the one offer that didn't write, the one person who didn't write an offer was because he didn't want to compete. Yeah. He wanted to write an offer as well. But with 6 other offers, like that.
And again, I'd love to get all like the comparables and stuff. But the thing is, at the end of the day, and so I tell people like, hey, you're being nice to the buyer. You're going to be a buyer. Like, here's all the feel good reasons to do this. But the real reason is because you're going to make more money if you offer.
When you look at, so again, change in mindset, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at it like I'm paying 2.5%, 3%, whatever percentage to a person who's negotiating against me, you're never going to be okay with the fee. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it as I am paying 3% for advertising to get my property out there and seen and get buyers in the door, then it kind of makes a little bit more sense.
Well, the percentage of buyers that use agents, I believe is 96 or 97%.
It's almost 100%.
So if you want to cut your marketing ability down to basically 3% of what's available out there, you can understand why you're going to sell for less. And people might misunderstand me to think that we're going to sell the home for more, which is true, but I'm saying you're going to get more
15 over asking.
We're going to get you more in your pocket than the 2.5% you're trying to save or the 3% you're trying to save. So that's what I'm trying to make clear is like all that should matter to a seller, for the most part, there's dates and things that'll come into play, but for the most part, the biggest thing is the net number. So how can we get you the best net at this time? This could change. At this time, it is by paying buyers, agents, commissions in this market.
And if everything goes crazy in August and the market tanks in December, and then by February, the growing pains are over, then buyers will have to just wait, save up more money until they can pay the commission. But the biggest thing that scares me right now is the VA home loan. Mm-hmm. Because right now, when you are a first-time home buyer with a VA home loan, you have a 2.3% funding fee. Mm-hmm. That's wrapped into your mortgage. All right. Let's round it up to 3 just for easy numbers. So we'll call it 3%. So if you're a third-time VA user, that's what you'd be paying, right? So now you have to slap a 3% commission for your buyer's agent on that too. So now you're upside down on your house 6%. 6%.
It's a big number, people.
That takes about 3 years to pay off. Mm-hmm. Well, at 3 years, you now want to sell your house. You just now hit 0 equity. Mm-hmm. We went from negative to 0 equity in 3 years.
Again, so people think 6% is not a lot.
You want to see a lot more Airbnbs? Wait until that happens. Because when you have 0 equity, you're going to leave your furniture behind. You're going to go over and start somewhere else and make money off this asset.
Yep.
Or you're going to do a long-term rental. And now all the people moving up here are wondering why we don't have enough houses for them to buy.
Let's go to the upside down. Let's say that the upside down, nobody pays, as a pretend. Let's say nobody pays and never has. It's never been normal to pay a buyer's agent commission in Fairbanks. Okay. How loved and how much more money do you think we could make if you were the first one that did it? And you said, hey, by the way, you don't need to pay your buyer's agent fee. We'll take care of that for you. One seller says, I'm going to step out and see how this goes. I still think that they would net more. Maybe it would not be enough marketing to begin with. I don't know. But you could say, hey, all you other agents, come on in. We want your buyers.
Is with these closing cost considerations and buyer's agent fees and stuff like that, the house still has to appraise. Mm-hmm. And so when you wrap everything into your loan, your chance of not appraising is higher. Yeah. Whereas if the seller covers the cost, it's going to appraise.
And we're still in a rising market. So when you're in a rising market, it's harder to hit appraisals.
Well, let's explain a rising market. Mm-hmm. We have high demand because of the rotation we have through here. People that want to come to Alaska, people that want to get away from the lower 48, military getting stationed up here, people that are coming back to raise their kids around their family, because we do have a rotating door kind of community here. So the reason we're in a rising market is because we have very low supply. This year, up until midsummer, we were under 150 homes. I think right now we just peaked over 150 homes in the entire area that we sell. Mm-hmm. Normally, we're at like 300. So double what we have. And our demand, even with the 7% interest rate, is super high because our rental prices are the same as a mortgage, if not more. So you can live somewhere for 3 years and move out and make $0, or you can live somewhere for 3 years, move out, and make 25 grand. I think most people pick the 25 grand, right? That's why we're in a rising market here. It's that supply and demand issue. And I keep hearing every day, well, the market's going to crash. The market's going to crash. And I laugh when I hear that, because when the market did crash in 2008, it was because there was low demand and super high supply.
Yep.
We're in the exact opposite situation. Yes, money is tight. That's the similarity. Money was tight then, money is tight now. But the cause of that money being tight is a completely different reason.
Yeah, and I know you and I, we get a monthly report, which is basically, it does a lot of things, but the big one is the absorption rate analysis, which just tells us, hey, if nobody listed any more houses for sale, how long would it take
us to sell everything?
To sell everything.
In that price range.
6 months is a healthy balanced market. Over 6 months is a buyer's market.
But if you tell 6 months to your clients, they freak out. And right now, the only one that's at 6 months inventory, which would be a balanced market, like is 500 and above.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
$500,000 and above is sitting at 6 months of inventory. Everything below is less.
I'm seeing that go away though. I'm seeing a lot of $600,000 houses.
Those are the ones
with multiple
in the last
offers.
2 or 3 weeks that have been moving. Keep in mind, all of our data is a month behind because we don't get this month's data until next month.
And we don't have as many to look at, so those numbers can easily get skewed because we have a month that didn't have enough listings or something.
And so right now we're talking about May's numbers for Fairbanks and North Pole.
Yeah.
Next week we'll get June's numbers for Fairbanks.
Right. So we looked at, or I looked at, just was pricing a house in the lower end of like to the 200 to 250 range. So again, 6 months is balanced. Anything over is a buyer's, and we'll pinch this one soon. And but we're at 1 month. So I saw as low as I think 0.8 months. So if we didn't have anything within 30 days, we'd have nothing to sell in that price range. It's just like crazy to think about. And then again, you have people saying like, yeah, I'm waiting for the interest rate to come down. I'm waiting for the bubble to burst. I'm like, listen, even if the interest rate comes down next year, your probably mortgage is going to be about the same because everything's going up. What, 4% last year, which is still double, and even more so, maybe 150% more than what used to be average. 1 to 2% used to be
still
average.
Beating the stock market.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. I don't love it, to be honest. I like that things are going up for people that own homes, but just like you and I
love it when I make my client money. But what I hate is when I'm selling one of my buyers a house that has first-time home buyer who's paying $350 for something I just sold for $290 3 years ago.
Yes,
that's what blows my mind. Now I'm happy for that seller, but I'm sad for that buyer.
Yeah, it's a weird. But
then as soon as that buyer owns it, he's like, "What can I do to make my house worth $50,000 more?" And I'm like, "Well, at this point, we're hitting a critical point. Keep your house clean, tidy, and free of issues.
Yeah,
and don't upgrade your house." And they're like, "Well, how am I going to make more money?" Then I'm like, "You're not going to make more money. You're just going to be able to sell your property because if you make your $300,000 house worth $450 all of a sudden because you put granite and marble and all this stuff in it, no one's going to buy it because it's still a $350 package with $450 sprinkles on it."
Well, here's the thing for everyone to remember. It's always going to feel a little bit unaffordable when you buy it right now, which sucks. I bought my house, my most recent house, last year, and I felt like I was overpaying for it. The house before that, I felt like I was overpaying for. And both times I'm looking at my value now. I'm like, oh, I can't believe how much equity I've made in 1 year. And so it's now.
You have 2 or 3 case studies because you're on your second home here now.
Yes.
So you can actually track your own numbers.
Yeah, I made $80,000 on a little tiny cabin over 2 years. This one, I was just kind of like roughly running comps. In the last year, we probably gained $50,000 in equity at my house. And it's like, that's a full-time job for people.
Yeah.
So
now it's unrealized gains.
Unrealized gains.
And the government soon wants to tax that, so it's going to be smaller. But
you know, and again, this is rough. I didn't, you know, I
and
didn't
the market goes up and down.
Market,
if the interest rate jumps to 9%, it's not $50,000 anymore.
Right.
But if the interest rate goes down to 2%, you're tripling your money.
Yeah.
Your equity will skyrocket.
So let's get back to the short-term rental stuff. Okay. Did I miss any questions that I should have asked about it? Or
let's go through the checklist. So as a guest, look at where you want to stay and what are the things you want to do and what kind of experience you want to have. That's how you're going to pick your short-term rental that you want to stay in. Mm-hmm. For hosts, weigh the options on doing it yourself or having management. If you want to do it yourself, by all means, try it out. Once you hit those growing pains, those headaches, hire it out. Mm-hmm. Or when you're overwhelmed. When you're overwhelmed and you're looking for a management company, look for one that provides services that are tied to your profitability. If you're going for a flat fee, only the management company wins. Mm-hmm. If you're going percentage of money made, again, you don't have any money that you made, you're not paying any fees. So that's the advice there. And then lastly is investors. If you are trying to get into a market and buy Airbnb, find somebody to either consult with as like a manager. We offer consulting as well for the people that have other realtors and don't want to use me. I will consult with you and give you kind of what to look for or what I recommend the type of Airbnb you buy is. Or you can find a realtor that, like me, does both, and then you get the consultation for free. But find somebody to guide you through this market, because I look throughout the entire United States. I got realtors in different markets that help me look for projects. And, I don't want to pretend like I know how Phoenix, Arizona operates. I don't understand their utilities, their trash service, their costs, their management fees, because that market is so different from ours here. So I don't expect an investor from New York to understand how Fairbanks property taxes and bed taxes work. And that's what we're here for. So yeah, those are the three categories that we service. And again, guests, hosts, and investors, do your research, let the money talk, do your numbers, do your own analysis, and understand the risk. Airbnbs are doing very well right now, but they're still risky. Somebody can trash your property. You can be inadequately advertised or staged and not attract clients. And there's an upfront cost. And keep in mind, this is still your asset, your project. You're just hiring for management. We often get confused with arbitrage. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
So Airbnb arbitrage would be, hey, landlord, I want a loose-ended lease so that I can sublet my property through Airbnb. And that way the landlord essentially has an Airbnb, might be able to charge a little bit more rent, but now has the tenant has the ability to host other guests. And a lot of people think we do arbitrage because that tenant then has to furnish the apartment, not the landlord. There's not any arbitrage businesses that I'm aware of in Alaska. There might be soon. And if there is, great, because we'll probably want to manage the unit. But we're not an arbitrage unit. We are a management company. So we will take over the product that you build, and we will help you make that the best product possible. But if you give us a crappy product, you're going to get a crappy return on investment. You give us a stellar product, you should expect a stellar return on your investment.
And for somebody who doesn't, I'm glad you brought up arbitrage. For somebody who doesn't maybe even have it managed, they just don't want to deal with it at all. That may be a good option, is to arbitrage it out to someone who is willing to work with it, because you can get some of the benefits of having a long-term renter, such as a lease. It may be a little bit looser than what you're used to. You do have a unit that, again, could get trashed, but also gets cleaned like at least once a week. Yeah,
and that's there's a lot of benefits to it as well. There's a lot more wear and tear on Airbnbs because of the number of people that come through your unit. But you got to keep in mind, those people are guests, and they usually behave as guests, versus a unit where people live in, they act like it's their home. And again, people live different ways. And so what we see is long-term rentals do get a lot more of the wood rot, the ruined carpet, the issues like that. With an Airbnb, you're replacing little stuff like towels, blankets, linens, pillows.
All the time.
I'd rather replace 100 pillows than one carpet. Mm-hmm. So generally, your Airbnb guests are a bit more conscientious of the property, knowing that other people will need to stay there too. Your tenant, whether they know whether they're staying or not, pretend like they're going to live there forever.
Right.
Until they don't want to anymore because they've made it so dirty and disgusting that they don't want to live there anymore.
Yeah, this place is a wreck. Yeah. Got to go get the next one.
Exactly. I got to go somewhere new and clean so I can ruin that too. Not speaking about all tenants that way. I just had some negative experiences. And yesterday was one of them when I had a home inspection on a fourplex. And I was just like, the amount of tenant damage alone.
It's a different feeling. And I'm not against tenants at all. I was a tenant.
I think they're needed.
But when you are a tenant, when I was a tenant, and I'm a good guy and I keep my stuff clean and all that, I definitely felt way less motivated to do anything at the place I was at. Like, if something broke, I would let them know. I'm not getting equity in it. No, I'm not, as opposed to my house where I'm, you just don't care as much. There's no way for you to really care.
I was the guy who had a service animal to get around a lease. I was the guy who moved every 2 years from apartment to apartment because I wanted something new and different, a change of scenery.
Yeah.
And now I'm the guy who lives in my house and I love it and I improve my house on the regular.
Yeah.
So I see all sides of it, but absolutely, I did not have any ownership or pride of ownership in my apartments. The second it became my property, I wanted it to be the best property I could have. One, because I want my money back one day when I sell it. Mm-hmm. But two, also, like, I can't complain to my landlord when the microwave breaks because it's my microwave.
Yeah.
And so it's a different mindset, and I think it's part of growth. I think everybody should be a renter in their 20s. By the time you're in your 30s, you should start looking at buying a property. By the time you're in your 40s, you should probably be looking at your second property. And by the time you're in your 50s or 60s, you should probably be looking at downsizing to a smaller, more affordable unit. If you follow that normal glide path, you'll have all the experiences in life, and you'll probably make some money off real estate that will help you in retirement. But we got to think long term. Everybody right now is thinking short term. How do I make the extra 10 grand this year? Not how do I make 20 grand over 10 years? You know? And so it is a slower process. The only way to get rich quick is gambling, and I don't recommend that.
Yeah. Well, just like I was telling you, looking at my house where I have like around 50 grand of unrealized equity. My first thought was, man, I wish I owned 4 more of these things.
Right.
You know, that should be everyone.
That'd be 200 grand.
Yeah. I was like, of course.
My biggest regret, selling the first house I bought. I will never buy a house that cheap again.
No.
I will never have that mortgage payment again. And, you know, I only made $600 a year when I rented it out because my rent was barely covering my mortgage after fuel, utility, and expenses.
My first mortgage was like $275 a year.
So $600 a year is not that much money. Even if I made $6,000 a year off of one property, that's not that much money if you think about the work that you have to put into it.
Right.
Still.
But
if you have 10 of those, now it's $60,000 a year. That's a full-time job.
Well, here's the difference. So people talk about the get rich quick thing, which I totally agree with what you're saying. It will feel like a get rich quick thing at a certain point because time goes by so fast. So the same people that are waiting to buy, it's 5 years later and they still haven't bought. If you did buy, that same time is like, oh, I can't believe it's been 5 years and I have $125,000 in equity now or something. I've paid my mortgage way down. So all these benefits happen. They're always going on in the background. As you and I are doing this, you know, we're gaining equity. And
my buyers always ask me, is it a good time to buy?
I think
I'm like, it's a bad time not to buy.
Yeah, and there's probably was a time, especially in 2008 in Arizona, where it would have been a bad time to buy. But
you can look back and you can always, hindsight's 2020, right? You can look back and be like, man, I should have bought more houses in 2020 when the interest rate was low. But at that time, we didn't think it was going to go to 8%. We thought it was going to stop around 4%.
Well, everything was so expensive, remember? In 2020, I can't believe how things are selling.
Oh my God, I paid $20,000 over asking, and now you sell your house 4 years later and you're making $20,000 over asking again, you know, but the interest rate's higher now. And the only person that got hurt was the buyer that waited.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, what does it look like 10 years from now? We don't know.
Who's to say? We don't know.
Who knows?
But you'll probably have more equity in your house if you own it.
You'll probably have more equity if you buy a house today than if you buy one in 5 years.
If we just look at all of history, that seems to be the way, unless we have a complete meltdown of our government, which in that case, no matter what you do,
everyone's screwed.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're equally as screwed as your neighbor.
Exactly. Yeah. Alrighty, man. I think that was good. AK BNB Management with Nick Williams, Darren and Tay Snow. Also,
check us out on Instagram, Facebook. We have our website up. We're on all the different Airbnb short-term management websites, bookings.com, TripAdvisor, Travelocity, Expedia, BBRO. Like
do they have a space? And all this will be in the description. Sorry, but do they have a space now, like on places like Airbnb.com and stuff for the management company themselves, or is it still?
We are just so you can't search by management company, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
But you can see that we are the host if you click on the property. It tells you, Nick owns this property or AK BNB Management owns this property.
I see.
So when you see the host and the communication comes through, you can also see all of our competition, everybody else out there too. So
for sure,
shopping around's easy. Just got to spend some time on the websites and look around.
Yep. I like it, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
All right. See you.
Bye.
Hey there, thank you so much for listening. If you want more content from AK Blake, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, all under the handles AK Blake. Or if you want to listen to more podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, it's there, Fairbanks year-round. You may or may not know, I am a local real estate agent here in Fairbanks with the Summit Realty Group. So if you like what I'm doing and you want to move to the area, you already live in the area, or you're looking to invest further into real estate in the area, you can reach me. Probably the best will be either my website, akblake.com, my email, blake@akblake.com, or my phone number is probably the fastest, 907-651-8356. You can call or text. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.